This is Grace, the pastor's wife who locked the church doors and set the entire building on fire, killing everyone inside, including her own husband, the pastor. This woman carried out the most brutal revenge you'll ever hear. Some call her a monster. Others say she was a victim. But before you judge, wait until you hear her story. And when you're done, I want to know your thoughts too. Before we continue, tell us in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to know how far our stories are reaching. And don't forget to subscribe and share if you enjoy what we do here. Grace was born into the church. Her father was a preacher, not a perfect man, but a man who loved God and loved people. He built the church with his own hands, with his sweat, with his voice that thundered every Sunday. And Grace, his only child, grew up watching the pews fill, the choirs sing, the people pray. Her father always told her, "Grace, one day this church will be yours. Protect it. Love it. Never let worldly things and greed steal the fire of God from your heart." She nodded. She believed him. Because to her, the church was not just a building. It was family. It was home. But life is not always fair to daughters. When her father died, the church elders believed a girl cannot run the church alone. So they always encouraged her to marry, if possible, a pastor, unaware that this was the beginning of a series of tragedies no one would have ever imagined. Few years later, she married David, a smooth man with sweet words and a strong smile, a man she believed loved God too. People loved David. His voice was strong. His sermons were sweet. He knew how to make people laugh, how to make them cry. And slowly, everyone forgot that the church was once Grace's inheritance. He eventually became the senior pastor. It became Pastor David's church. But Grace did not complain. She stood faithfully beside him, smiling. She was happy. She loved David. She told herself, this is what marriage is. This is what sacrifice is. This is what loyalty is. And she believed that as long as souls were being won to God, it didn't matter who carried the title of leader. So she concentrated more in raising their only daughter, Miriam, in church just the way her dad had raised her. Everything seemed fine. Until the night she heard Miriam crying behind a locked bathroom door. The night was heavy. Grace walked downstairs to grab a cup of water from the kitchen at midnight, when suddenly she heard a muffled cry, faint, broken, coming from her daughter's room. She pushed the door slowly. "Miriam," she whispered. Her daughter sat on the bed, shoulders shaking, eyes red and swollen. Grace rushed to her. "Talk to me, my child. What's wrong?" But Miriam only shook her head harder. "No, Mom, I can't. He said if I ever speak, if I ever tell anyone, he will hurt my family. And I don't want us to be destroyed." Grace's chest tightened. Her hands trembled as she cupped her daughter's face. "My baby, no one will hurt you. Look at me. You are safe. Whatever it is, I will protect you. Tell me." Minutes passed like hours. The crying grew louder. Grace begged, pleaded, promised. Finally, Miriam whispered the words that shattered her mother's world. "Mom, I am pregnant." Grace froze. Her heart pounded in her ears. She staggered back, gripping the bedpost as if the room was spinning. What did you just say?" Miriam broke again, burying her face in her palms. It's Pastor Daniel, the assistant pastor. He locks the door. He said God would punish me if I spoke." "Mom, I didn't want this." Grace's legs gave way. She dropped to her knees, her hands shaking so violently she could barely hold herself up. Her lips parted for a scream, but only a broken gasp came out. Just then, the door burst open. David, her husband, the senior pastor, stepped in. He saw Grace shaking on the floor, Miriam sobbing on the bed. Grace cried out, pointing at their daughter. "David, your assistant has destroyed her. He has killed our only child. Do you hear what she just said?" But David's face, it did not move. No shock, no outrage, just silence. Grace looked at him, then at Miriam. Confusion twisted her heart. "What is this? Why are you both so quiet? Why are you not saying anything?" Through trembling lips, Miriam whispered again. "Mom, Dad knows. He told me not to say anything. He said I must protect the church. He said if I speak, it will ruin everything." Grace's eyes widened. She turned to David, disbelief burning in her soul. "You knew?" she screamed. "You knew your own daughter was being used? You knew and you said nothing?" David finally spoke, his voice calm, too calm. "Grace, you don't understand. The devil is trying to use her to destroy the house of God. This is not the time to shout. We must protect the image of the church. We must protect the ministry. Grace lunged at him, grabbing his clothes with both fists, shaking him violently, her screams echoing through the room. Protect the church? Protect the image? What about your child? What about your daughter's blood, David? How could you? Tears rolled down her cheeks. Miriam's sobs filled the room. But David only stood still, whispering again, like a man who had already chosen his side. We will handle it quietly. Quietly means hide it. Quietly means make her daughter, who has been severely molested by someone she trusted, feel like the sin. Grace felt her heart tear, and the tear did not stop. But one would think this is the worst it could get. No, this was where it all began. Grace did not sleep that night. Her eyes stayed open, burning, her chest tight. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Miriam's tears. She heard her husband's calm voice calling her daughter's pain the devil's plan. By dawn, her body was weak, but her spirit was on fire. This ends today, she whispered to herself. She wrapped her shawl around her shoulders and sent word for the elders of the church to gather. She believed she was about to expose the evil that had just happened in the house of God, unaware her husband was just a step ahead of her. The elders arrived one by one, men with heavy Bibles tucked under their arms. Men who had once bowed to her father's voice. Men who had seen her grow from a little girl into a woman. Even though most of the elders had been dismissed by David, but she still knew some of them from when she was little, men she thought she could trust. Grace's heart pounded as she stood before them. Her voice trembled, but her words were fire. My daughter has been defiled. She is pregnant. Pastor Daniel, the man you call assistant, has been severely forcing my daughter. And David, my husband, knew and stayed silent. The air froze. Grace's chest rose and fell, waiting for outrage, waiting for justice. But the first elder leaned back in his chair, folded his hands, and shook his head slowly. Grace, he said, his voice heavy with judgment, we have heard your child is wayward. Instead of dragging her sins here to destroy the image of the church, you should focus on disciplining her. Train her to fear God, to be righteous. Grace's mouth fell open. For a moment, she thought she had misheard. Wayward, she repeated, her voice cracking. You dare call my daughter wayward? She was forced. She was broken. But another elder cut in, his tone sharper. The image of the church cannot be dragged in the mud because of one girl's mistakes. You must silence this talk, Sister Grace. Protect the flock. Protect the ministry. Grace's legs trembled. Her lips quivered as she stared at their stony faces. It felt as if a script had already been written before she entered that room, and she was the villain in their story. Her voice broke. She is my child. My only child. How can you sit there with Bibles in your hands and accuse her? But their replies came cold, rehearsed, like the chorus of a dark hymn. Discipline your daughter. Protect the church. Do not let the devil use you. Grace's heart shattered. She clutched the edge of the table, gasping for breath. In that moment, she realized David had been one step ahead. Still, she tried the law. She went to the police, desperate for justice. But their questions stabbed like knives. Where is your proof? Do you have witnesses? It is the word of a girl against a man of God. The case died before it was even born. And now the whispers spread like fire. She is possessed, and she and her wayward daughter wants to destroy the church. And the cruelest part? This was only the beginning. The elders had crushed her. The law had failed her. David's shadow was everywhere. In the silence of her room, she asked herself the cruelest question, who will believe me? And then one face came to mind. David's cousin Lydia. For years, Grace had opened her hands to this woman, paid her rent, fed her 3 children, helped them through school. Lydia was family, or so she thought. More than that, Lydia was a mother. Surely she would understand. Surely she would believe. Grace picked up her phone with trembling hands and called. Lydia, please. I need to talk to you. It's about Miriam. Minutes later, Lydia arrived. Grace poured her heart out, her words tumbling like broken glass on the floor. She told her everything. Miriam's tears, Pastor Daniel's abuse, David's betrayal, the elders' cruel silence. When she finished, her chest rose and fell like a storm that had just spent itself. Her eyes searched Lydia's face, begging for one thing, hope. But Esther sighed, shook her head slowly, and took Grace's hands. Grace, you are tired. You are broken. I know you love your daughter. But I think the devil is trying to use you. You need help. Maybe see a psychiatrist. Maybe go for rest. Even David is worried. He told me you are not yourself these days. Grace froze. Her lips parted, but no words came out. It was as if the knife in her back had found a deeper place to cut. Lydia pulled closer, whispering again, "Please, Sister Grace, don't let the devil win." When the door closed behind her, Grace fell to the ground, her sobs shaking the walls. She had come seeking an ally. Instead, she found another voice telling her she was insane. And she did not know. This was only the beginning of the greatest betrayal yet to come. Sunday morning came, but Grace's heart was heavy. She hadn't slept. Her eyes were swollen from crying. As the church doors still opened, the choir sang. The ushers still smiled. The people still clapped their hands like nothing was wrong. Grace sat in the front pew, her Bible trembling in her lap. Miriam stayed home, too broken to face the world. The news had spread like wildfire. The church was filled, and everyone was eager to hear more about this, or rather confirm if the rumors were true. David walked to the pulpit. His voice was calm, his smile gentle. He stretched his arms and said, "Church, we are under attack." The people gasped. Murmurs filled the room. Grace lifted her head slowly, her heart pounding. David's voice grew louder. "The devil is angry because of what God is doing here. The devil wants to use even the ones closest to us to destroy this great work." The crowd clapped. "Amen," voices rang out. Grace froze. She felt her stomach twist. Was he talking about her? David pressed his hand against his chest, eyes wet as though he might cry. "Even in my own home, the enemy is fighting. My wife, my Grace, has been possessed. She has been hearing voices, seeing things, saying things that are not true. I need you, my church family, to pray for her." Gasps filled the air. Eyes turned toward Grace. Whispers crawled through the crowd. Grace's lips parted. She shook her head, tears burning her cheeks. "No, no, that's not true," she whispered. But her voice was swallowed by the noise. David continued, his tone heavy, dramatic. "She is my wife. I love her. Please pray for her mental health. The devil has possessed my beloved wife to destroy this church." By now, the whole church was on their feet. Prayers rose. Tongues filled the air. Some wept. Some pointed. And all eyes, every single eye, looked at Grace as if she were possessed. Grace tried to speak, to stand, but her legs were weak. She stumbled, gripping the wooden pew. How could you?" she cried, staring at David. But no one listened. The music grew louder, the prayers hotter, the whispers sharper. In one moment, Grace was no longer the pastor's wife. She was no longer the daughter of the man who built the church. She was no longer the woman who prayed and served and loved. In their eyes, she was the devil's vessel, the possessed one, the mad one. And Grace, broken and shaking, realized she had just lost the everything. Grace staggered to her feet, her voice raw with pain. "Listen to me. Please listen. I am not mad. I am telling you the truth." But the church only grew louder. Voices rose like thunder, prayers filling every corner of the hall. David lifted his hands dramatically. "Church, do you see? The spirit troubling her has come back. We must pray harder." The people cried out, "Holy Ghost fire." Ushers rushed forward. Two men grabbed Grace's arms. Another held her waist. She kicked, fought, screamed. "Leave me. Let me speak. I am not possessed." But the more she struggled, the more they believed. Prayer warriors surrounded her, shouting in tongues, pressing hands on her head, her shoulders, her back. Grace's cries were drowned out by their chants. To them, it was not a woman fighting for her voice. It was a demon fighting for space. Minutes stretched like hours. Grace grew weak. Her tears mixed with sweat. By the time the ambulance arrived, the church had already decided her fate. The white doors swung open. Men in uniforms strapped her to a stretcher. David stood over her, shaking his head, sighing deeply. "My wife, oh God, have mercy on her mind." He began crying. And as the stretcher rolled out, whispers filled the hall. "She has gone mad. She needs deliverance. Pastor is truly suffering." Grace's screams echoed one last time through the church doors. But to everyone watching, they weren't cries of truth anymore. They were the cries of a mad woman. The days blurred into nights inside the psychiatric hospital. White walls, cold food, silent stairs. Grace sat quietly on her bed, hands folded on her lap, lips sealed. She had learned the rule: To leave, she had to pretend. No more shouting. No more tears. No more accusations. Yes, doctor. I'm fine now. Yes, I feel much better. She forced smiles. She nodded. She played along. And at last, they believed her. After weeks that felt like years, the papers were signed. She was discharged. Grace stepped out into the sunlight, but she did not feel free. She felt like a prisoner carrying chains inside her chest. But she had one plan now: gather her things, gather her daughter, and run. When she got home, the house was quiet. David was not around. Her heart raced as she tiptoed through the rooms. She opened drawers. She searched shelves. Her hands shook as she pulled out old files from a cabinet. Church documents, land papers, investments her father had left behind. Her eyes brimmed with tears. I'll take these. I'll start again with Miriam. But then, her hands froze. As she opened a thick brown folder, her lips parted. A gasp slipped out. Her whole body froze as if struck by lightning. As she saw it, it was a wedding picture. David, in a suit, smiling proudly, but standing beside him, dressed in a bridal gown, was not her. It was Lydia, his so-called cousin. The woman Grace had fed, sheltered, defended. Her breath hitched. No, no, this cannot be. Her shaking fingers flipped to the next page. A family portrait. David, Lydia, and 3 children, all standing together, all smiling. A complete family. A hidden family. Grace's chest tightened. Her knees wobbled. She couldn't breathe. Desperate, she flipped again. Another page. This time, a certificate. Her eyes blurred with tears as she read the words. Certificate of marriage. David and Lydia. Married. Not recently, but long before she had ever become his wife. The folder slipped from her trembling hands. Papers scattered across the floor like fallen leaves. Grace's eyes were wide, her mouth open in silent horror. Her body shook uncontrollably. It felt as if the ground had been ripped from under her feet. And just as her world shattered, the door creaked open. David walked in. Calm. Too calm. He saw the photos in her hand, the shock on her face. David's face hardened. His steps were slow, deliberate, as he walked toward her. He bent down, snatched the folder from the floor, and held it close to his chest. Then he looked at her. No shame, no guilt, just a cold smirk hiding in the corners of his mouth. You want the truth? David leaned closer, his voice low, sharp. Your father made a mistake. He thought he could hand everything to a woman. But this was the plan from the very beginning. Me and her, we planned it all. The church, the money, the power. It was never yours, Grace. Never. His voice was sharp, cutting through the silence. Grace gasped, clutching her chest as if her heart had been pierced. Her voice broke. You used me? David cut her off with a cruel laugh. Now you know. Who will believe you, Grace? Who? The church? The elders? The people who already think you're insane. He spread his arms wide, as if mocking her. You are nothing but a madwoman in their eyes. A broken voice no one listens to. Grace dropped to the floor, wailing, her tears soaking the scattered papers. Her screams echoed through the room. But David only stood there, cold, unbothered, clutching the file like a trophy he had already won. Grace's tears fell like rain. David, how could you? After all these years? The words pierced her soul. Her world cracked. Her body trembled. Her voice was gone. She sank to the floor, staring blankly as David closed the folder. And in that silence, Grace finally understood. She had been betrayed, not just by a husband, but by a man who had plotted her downfall from the very first day. The next morning, Grace dressed carefully. A plain gown, a forced smile. On the outside, she looked calm. On the inside, her heart was a battlefield. That day was the workers' meeting in church. She walked into the church. The elders, ushers, choir leaders, all the church workers turned and smiled at her. Oh, we thank God for your life, Ma. One of them said softly. God is healing you. Grace smiled back, lips curved but empty. A mask, nothing more. David stood at the pulpit, tall, confident, holy in the eyes of men. His voice rang out, smooth as always. Brethren, God is faithful. He is restoring my wife day by day. Let us keep praying, keep fasting, for the devil will not win. This church will conquer every storm. The workers clapped. Some shouted, Amen. Grace sat there, silent. But in her head, the pictures came back like fire. The wedding photo. David, standing proudly in a suit, and beside him, not her, but Lydia. Lydia, the woman she thought was his cousin. Lydia, smiling with the same lips that once called her sister. Grace blinked hard. Then the family portrait flashed before her eyes. Lydia, David, and their 3 children, grinning like a perfect family. The certificate, the proof, the betrayal carved into paper. Her stomach twisted. Her chest ached. She turned her head slowly, as though dragged by an invisible force. And there she was, Lydia, sitting just a few seats away. Her 3 children gathered around her, all dressed in neat clothes, all smiling as though nothing in the world was wrong. Lydia caught Grace's eyes and smirked. A cruel, knowing smirk. Grace's hands balled into fists. Her vision blurred. The room grew hot. Every lie, every insult, every prayer against her name thundered in her ears. Grace could not hear David's voice anymore. The workers clapped, the elders nodded, but her ears were deaf to all of it. Her heart beat like a drum. Her eyes burned with tears. Quietly, she stood up. Her feet dragged across the floor as if carrying the weight of the world. Nobody followed her. Nobody stopped her. Outside, the sun was hot, but Grace shivered. Her hands trembled. Her steps staggered. Tears streamed down her face, blurring her sight. She walked, not knowing if she was walking to life or to the end. Across the street, a small shop stood. The shop owner looked up, startled. Everyone had heard the stories. Pastor's wife is possessed. She is mad. Grace's voice cracked as she whispered, "Please, give me 4 padlocks." The man hesitated. His eyes studied her swollen face, her shaking hands. But he said nothing. He slowly pushed the padlocks forward. She dropped the money, grabbed them, and walked away, her tears dripping onto the dusty ground. Back at the church, David's voice thundered from inside. The workers shouted, "Amen." The air buzzed with prayers. But Grace moved in silence. One by one, she locked the church doors. Click, click, click. For locks. For doors. No escape. Her chest heaved. Her sobs turned into gasps. She staggered to the storehouse, her hands fumbling for the gallon of fuel. It was heavy, but her pain made her strong. With trembling arms, she lifted it, splashing the fuel around the walls of the church. The sharp smell filled the air. Her tears fell faster, mixing with the drops of fuel on the ground. Inside, the voices sang louder. Outside, Grace struck a match. For a moment, she froze. The fire danced on the matchstick, small, fragile, yet deadly. Her lips moved, whispering words only heaven could hear. "Father, forgive me." Then she dropped it. In seconds, fire roared to life. The fire roared like a wild animal. Flames climbed the church walls. Smoke filled the sky, black and heavy. Inside, people screamed, laughed weakly, cried and prayed. Hands banged hard on the locked doors. Voices cried, begging for help. Prayers turned into shouts of fear. Grace fell on her knees outside. Her hands shook as she pulled at her hair, crying loud, her voice breaking. Neighbors ran. "Fire! Fire in the church!" they shouted. Soon sirens filled the street. Fire trucks, ambulances, and police cars rushed in. Firefighters rolled out hoses, spraying water at the flames. But it was too late. Paramedics stood ready with stretchers. Police pushed the crowd back. Everyone's face was full of fear. Then one officer pointed at her. "There, that's the one. The pastor's wife." Grace did not run. She did not fight. She just sat on the ground, her clothes covered in ash. 2 policemen grabbed her arms. The metal handcuffs clicked around her wrists. Click. The crowd gasped. Some shouted, "Why did she do this?" Some cried. Others shook their heads in silence. Behind her, the church groaned as the roof fell in, fire shooting high into the sky. The screams inside grew faint, swallowed by smoke. The police pulled Grace to her feet and dragged her away. The sirens wailed. The crowd stared. And in that moment, Grace realized something. No matter how much pain she carried, no matter how much betrayal she had faced, nothing she could say now, nothing she could explain, would ever justify what she had done. Her anger had spoken louder than her voice, and it had destroyed everything, because once fire leaves your hands, it cannot be called back. Now that you have heard Grace's story, was she evil or was she a victim? Let us know what you think.